Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you the simple privilege escalation technique which allows you to become root on a Linux system when you are in the Docker group. So after this I'm going to show you how to protect yourself from this attack vector and how to grant access to Docker to your users without putting a flaw that big in your system. So I'm going to begin by the demonstration. First, let me show you that I am not root on this machine. If I do ID, I'm only in the Docker group. If I do like cat etc shadow, I can't. If I try to sudo it, uh, I'm going to see that user is not in sudoers. So I am just a regular user on this basically. Although I can run Docker like Docker ps and the commands work because I am in the Docker group. So in order to escalate my privilege, I'm going to run the following exploit. Docker run. Oh, let me just tmax now. Will be easier for later. Okay. Docker run -rm for remove after execution. Interactive terminal v, I'm going to map a volume which will begin at the root of the host and will be mapped inside the host folder of the container. And the image will be Ubuntu, and by default I'm going to use the bash command. So now I can see I have a shell on my container, and I can go just to cd host, and here I am essentially on the host operating system with root privileges. So you see it's not that complicated. If I go to like cd home, cd home, cd user /bureau, which means desktop, I can see exactly the same files I do see there. So I'm really on the host operating system there, and I am root, so I have really every permissions. This is a problem because now I can just cd etc cd no I don't have nano. Maybe I'll have to download it. Let me just get. Let me just get this. It will be more convenient. Okay, apt install nano-y. Okay, perfect. Now I can just go to nano sudoers, and here we can see the control over who can execute what as root. So the only thing I have to essentially do is to add a line there and say user, which means my username on the host operating system, and then I'm gonna copy essentially the line which is above, and this line means you can run any commands on the operating system as any user. So save this. Now I don't need this container to be running anymore, so I'm gonna exit of it. So after the disconnection, I am still not in the sudo group, but the fact is that I can do like sudo-l, and I can execute any commands on the operating system as anyone. So as you can see, I can just go like sudo su, and I am root then. So it wasn't too complicated. The payload is really simple to execute, and now I can do basically everything I want. So now we're going to be talking on how do we fix this? How do we prevent on a simple user to become root just by being in the Docker group? Well, the first thing you need to know is that when you create a container, there is a kind of mapping occurring between the host operating system and the container, and this also applies to IDs, users' IDs. So essentially, the fix consists in moving the remapping in order to prevent Docker to map on the 0 ID, which is essentially the root user ID. So in order to do that, I'm going to edit 3 files on the host system. So conveniently, I'm root now, so I can just do it. And the 3 files are first dash etc dash sub uid nano, and here I'm going to add a condition which will be read by Docker, which is doc remap 100 65536, which essentially means, well, the remapping which is allowed only begins at the 100 user. You can't remap users below the 100 limit, which means that you can't remap users in the container at the 0 UID. So this was the first file. I'm going actually to insert the exact same line in the etc sub gid, because groups work the same. So doc remap 100, which is the maximum amount of users we want to authorize on this system. I think this is really enough. And now the last file we want to edit is the Docker configuration file, which is nano-etc docker daemon. And here I'm going to add user ns remap default. This is JSON. Okay, now this is done, I can just restart my Docker service. Which is going to take a bit of time if I didn't do syntax errors. Okay, now my Docker daemon has restarted, and as a proof of the patch, I can now try the exact same proof of concept. So I'm going to recreate my container, docker run this thing, which doesn't change. As you can see, it's still working, but if I go to host, cd etc, and like ls-l shadow, we can see that previously the file belonged to root, now it's belonging to nobody no group, which means that I won't be able to access it. Like, for example, if I even try to read it, cat shadow, I get a permission denied. So as you can see, the remapping has been successful, and now my user can't execute arbitrary command on the protected file of our system. Essentially, the remapping is not working for this user because it now starts at 100 and we are willing to translate the 0 user. So you can't access as root the host operating system anymore, which is why the exploit doesn't work. Anyway, that's all I have for you today, guys. So be sure to leave a comment or like or whatever you please, and see you next time.